First of all, you have a thing on IBIS Vision 2012, I think it is, right? Would you be able to elaborate what Vision 2012 means in regards to stop child labor, and like what is the long-term goal to eradicate it?
The long-term goal is definitely to eradicate child labor, because the goal is that no child should be obliged to work to a degree where it will interfere with the right to an education, and that's as brief as it is. Yeah.
So IBIS focuses a lot on educational programs as well, supporting that?
We have this threefold, as you know, from the vision, that everybody should have equal access to education and influence and resources, and we think they are closely interconnected. Okay. So we work on the necessary levels to address these issues.
What are some of the challenges that you have found?
We have the challenges that we face is the challenges that face working for education for all over the world, because you must remember that we haven't worked specifically with child labor before we joined this campaign this year. We have worked with education, and we have seen that child labor is one of the things that inhibits children from having an education. Okay. So that's why logically we decided to join it.
Sure.
So we don't have a long history of working specifically with programs for child laborers in the field, but we have a long history of working for education. Okay. Both at the administrative level and at the grassroots or school board level.
What do you think is the root of this child labor crisis? What is like a major contributor to child labor?
The major contributor to child labor is, on equal terms, a very poor school system. And then poverty and tradition. I mean, the traditional ways that people handle poverty is sometimes to make their children work. But these things, I mean, the core of the matter is that the places where children work very often has education systems that are not worth attending, or very poor, or not accessible to all children. So from our point of view, it's the education issue that is sort of the root, the core problem. Starting the discussion on, I mean, people have the idea that child labor is a necessary evil, something that we have to accept because of poverty, and we can't change the world in 1 week, and blah blah blah. But we want to challenge the sort of sedativeness of that way of thinking, that actually child labor should not be a necessary evil anywhere, that we have to start thinking that children should not work, and if they are not in school, then why are they not in school? Very often you have education systems that have a very high teacher-to-pupil ratio, and materials that are outdated, or methods that are not child-friendly. And very often you can see that that is actually the core. Very few, even very poor parents, very few of them will keep their child out of school if the school they can send it to is free, if there's a meal, and if there's good education, teachers that want the best for the child, and they can see that the child is happy there and learning something, and they also know that there's a way through the education system forward from that school. I mean, it doesn't stop with primary education, there's secondary education and so on. So if you know that this is your child's way out of the poverty that you are now suffering, very few parents would choose not to send the child.
So how long has IBIS been invested in Stop Child Labor?
We have been associated with the campaign for some time, but we haven't been part of it until this year. We haven't seen much result yet, because we are just starting it. We included the issue of child labor in the book that we sent out this year, part of the Education for All campaign in Denmark, and we have seen that it created some debate on school level, but we haven't been able to start sort of to use that success onwards yet, because we are still in the middle of that campaign, so we will need some time to find out what our potential is. I think we will try and do both. I mean, to make some public information on it, to sort of create an awareness in the Danish public, and then also to target decision makers at the levels where we find that it's useful. That's politicians, and also one or two big companies we would like to work with if we can manage.
Sponsorships and stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. Sponsorships, but also people who want to work with their own product line and securing that there's no child labor involved in producing the goods that they are selling.
What could a normal average person do to contribute or help with this Stop Child Labor campaign? What are some suggestions that you may have in your opinion?
One of the things that I would like to see is I would like to develop the part that makes it possible as a consumer to take the right decisions or to ask the right questions, because right now I think it's difficult to act through your purchases because you don't know the difference between one t-shirt and another, to put it that way. Okay. I would very, very much like if we could be part of creating a system or information campaign that could actually help in so that the companies who do well in trying to abandon child labor are also credited for it, and that it becomes visible in the product, so that people can take a good decision. Of course, the easy way is to write a check and support the campaign and make sure that the money goes to the programs that actually make sure that children are going to school. And that is something that we would, of course, very much like to encourage also. But the big bucks, I mean, the big difference will be made not only by contributions, but by changed decisions in the daily life, that you can actually, as a shop in Denmark, it would be wonderful if you heard the question once or twice every week, is there child labor in this, or things like that, so that it became an issue. We will start with what we already do, and we have integrated it in the campaign that targets the school children, and through them hopefully their parents. And then we also have some other opportunities through our magazines and through the media, hopefully, if we can make something interesting enough for journalists to write about it. And then I think a lot of things can also be done on, I don't know if you call it internal, but by direct contact. I mean, you contact the politicians who need to know something about it and talk to them about what are the targets. You work with unions and whatever we can manage. But to tell the truth, as I said, we're still in the beginning of this.
Would you imagine that perhaps causing some conflict with some corporations if it came out that this particular product does not support, or would you see that as something that might cause conflict?
It could cause conflict, but it would be for a greater good or something. I mean, it would be part of. I mean, both stories are good. It's a good story if a company is actually doing a great job, but it's also looking at it from the information side, a good story where if the company does something bad and goes public because of that, or it comes out in the media and they become blamed for it. Make poverty history.
Right. Can you elaborate a little bit about how that concept and project is connected to IBIS, and how would child labor, this new campaign of child labor, kind of is it all interrelated?
As it is now, we haven't joined the two campaigns closely together. Hopefully they will spin off positively on each other, but we haven't integrated them because Make Poverty History is something very strictly connected to the 2015, the Millennium Goals.